Welcome to another episode of Leadership Conversations. And my name's Monwara Ali. I'm really pleased to be here on Saturday after a short break. So, our conversations, Lorlett and I were having these conversations on Saturdays for a very long time. We took a break and we're back, and I'm excited about today's conversation of just a little bit about me for those who don't know me. So I'm an advocate for leadership. I'm a leadership consultant, coach, and also a CEO and director of a couple of different charities. CEO of Wolfram Forest Community Hub. And I love having these conversations. Over to you, Lole.
Well, hello everyone. Happy to be here again. I think we've been away for about 3 weeks. Manwara's been doing her thing, preparing. She's an action taker. So, a little bit about me. I've been in business for 24 years. I run an organization and a business called One Hand Can't Clap. I've been in business now for a long time, 24 years. And I champion leadership. And that's the connection with Manwara and myself, is that we're passionate about leadership because everything is about leadership. Everything we do, the way we think, we move, everything. And I don't think that enough conversations are having about what it takes to be a leader and the importance of it. Because so many of us, we do such great things, but we really don't take ownership of the idea that we're leaders. There's a lot of contradictory about what a leader is. And that's why we're having these conversations. Manwara and I decided that, it's important to have these conversations and just make it normal. It's not about authority. Any one of us can be a leader at any time in any situation we choose to be. And so this is what these conversations are about. So over to you, Manwara.
Yes, thank you, Lolette. Such a wonderful way to get us started. So, today is very much a warm up on one of the leadership topics, cultural intelligence. The starting point of any sort of connection is understanding and getting to know, because something that I say a lot is we don't know what we don't know. And the key to getting to know what we don't know is awareness. And how do we build awareness? And yeah, so Lolette, you're in Jamaica at the moment, right?
I am, definitely. Thank God for technology. We're not far away from each other. I mean,
No, no,
yes,
no,
no,
it just
technology
feels
makes
like,
it different. Yes. And it's interesting, as you said, about this cultural intelligence. When you say to me, and what time is it? And when I said to you that it was something to four, you were like, oh my goodness, we could have changed the time. But I said to you, it doesn't really matter, because we live in a global society at the minute in terms of people operate all over the world different times, and at one time it would be unheard of. How long would you have taken to get a message over to me to Jamaica from the UK before technology? What would we have done?
yeah, but there's a huge community in Jamaica that needs to hear you and see you and remember you. But like 3 in the morning, is it? What time is it?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh, I feel really bad. But I mean, this is a classic example of not knowing. Had I asked, had I checked, I would have discovered that it's 4 a.m. in Jamaica, and I could have easily have set this up like in the evening, London time. Because look, and this is the message I think around businesses and companies where you have a diverse group of individuals running those businesses but completely unaware of each other's difficulties or barriers, or personal practices, culture, our favorite word. And I can really see this is how conflict happens. But I'm a firm believer, you ask, you discover. Many of us don't like asking, do we, Lole, or don't even think of asking?
but you can only you can only tackle something if you're aware of it.
Mm.
I mean, you would never consider changing the time because it wasn't of any question about it being time differences or anything else. But I'm a morning person, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not after 2 o'clock. I'm gone. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's it. My day starts 5, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it finishes at 2. After 2 o'clock, that's it. I'm relaxing in the garden or doing something. Let the world pass me by. So I'm a morning person, so it doesn't have an impact on me. Whereas somebody else, it might have.
Ah, that's good to know. That's good to know because that's the other thing. Because we've got people who like being told, and we have people who like being asked, right? So some people like the freedom and creativity, whereas others just like instructions. Just give me instructions. What needs to be done? And I'll get it done. I have seen overwhelm building communities and building teams. I have seen overwhelm in the faces of people who operate differently because of their differences in personality, because of their differences of, you know, ways of doing, because that's what culture is. Culture is the way we do things, right?
This is how we do things here.
Yeah.
And then it become a fixed way of being, and people are not flexible enough, agile enough to say, well, okay, let's look at something different. You go into certain organization and, this is how we do things here. And that determines what everybody else does because, hey, you can't upset the status quo, can you? I mean, this is how we do things here. And it's been aware that, yeah, you have to be flexible these days. I mean, COVID teaches that. you know,
COVID.
COVID, yeah, COVID teaches us that there's no one way to do anything. Because I remembered, you're hearing about COVID's going to happen, situation is happening everywhere else, but it was never about us. It was never ever going to be about us. And the blue, you're here, that's it. Lockdown. And it was like, what? Shock to the system. I'm still trying to get over it.
Mm, mm, mm. So true. People are still trying to get over it, but businesses are, I think some have really embraced the idea of understanding that people are running their lives differently now at home. So
Mm.
some people prefer to work from home, some don't. And also some people are working for more than one company. Some people are doing hybrids where they are running their own, doing their own personal thing as well as, I mean, look at me on Saturdays. I've been doing this for a while now, but like, I really enjoy it. I think for me, imparting knowledge is, I feel like it's part of my DNA. I did a personality test years ago and I discovered that is how I'm shaped. So for me, imparting knowledge, and this is where like I have to strike the balance between some people wanting that and some people not wanting it. I had this interesting conversation with someone recently around accepting, like, and being ready. So when we're coaching people, sometimes people aren't ready to receive. So obviously, having a platform like this and imparting knowledge is for me a great way of having an impact. But also, I we don't have to think about whether that person is or those people are ready to receive, because those who are ready will listen and take something away, and those who are not ready won't. And I think it's very hard when people sometimes reach out to you, I'm sure, Lorlett, and they say, can I have a bit of coaching and mentoring? And you may realize sometimes they're not actually ready to receive. Have you had some like examples that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people, I always say it's the woulda, the coulda, and the shoulda. you know, they will say to you, "Oh yes, I really want to do this," and then you come to them, and then they realize what it's going to. Because my question is always, okay, so what is it going to take? Have you considered what it's going to take? Whether it's time, whether it's finance, commitment, whatever it is, it's going to cost you something, regardless, right? And yet, yeah, I want a promotion. What is it going to take in order to get that promotion? You're going to have to do some serious work, because you have to put the work to work. I always say, put that work to work, literally. Find out what is it going to take? And that's when people are actually saying, oh, you see them 6 months later. So how's the promotion going? Oh, I woulda, I shoulda, I coulda, and I was going to, and and there's all sorts of excuses going on because when they get confronted with the work and see what it takes. Oh no, I can't be asked. It takes something. So you have this bold idea that you want to get promoted, but have you really considered what it's going to take? And some people are phased by that and they get stopped by it. So that's again, sometimes it's a cultural thing because as a woman, you probably think, oh my goodness, I'm operating in a man's world, and who am I to even consider going for such a role? Even to earn that kind of money. So we need to really understand what is going on with people, why they don't take the actions, why they really don't put themselves in the position that they ought to. There's a lot more beyond it than procrastination or not wanting to. Sometimes it's the story that they're actually telling themselves that they can't, and then they get stopped by that can't, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And I think this is where awareness is so important because, as a woman from a certain cultural background, my community would not see myself in those kind of CEO positions. Had I attended last year, I attended a meeting I was specially invited to, and they had, I think, more than 50 men there. I was the only woman, and this is in a rural area of Bangladesh, in the village. I just noticed something, Lorlett. Jay is here receiving, and Mehmet from Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate your comments and feedback. And I hope that we are able to give you something valuable to take away today. Um,
I'm just gonna step in there. Hello Jay, so great to see you. We always on the same platform. He's a great storyteller, and he's amazing. So thank you, Jay, for reaching out to us. I appreciate you. Back over to you, Manora.
Yeah, no, thank you. Both of you wonderful people. And let's keep the conversation flowing. So I was saying that, I've had a similar situation, and it's not it's not that many of us don't want to. I think we just can't imagine sometimes because of the way we've been conditioned. um, and that in itself is really interesting because when I think about myself and my identity, I don't see myself conditioned in the same way as other women I've met my age. And maybe that has something to do with my personal drive since I was really young, wanting to always break the cycle. I broke the cycle when I was the first in my family to go to university. And ever since then, to realize, and it wasn't an easy journey, Lole, because I didn't get the grades. So every single university rejected me. And when I got those rejections, I I don't know, something in me told me like I have to try. And I went back, and then I had one university offer me an interview, and I went in. And that was Westminster University, by the way. I know Faluke has a wealth conference there. later this month, which I hope to attend. So yeah, Westminster University admissions tutor interviewed me and gave me a chance. And then I graduated with a law degree. So, like, I know I'm sharing an example from many years ago, but that has been what has given me confidence over the years to believe that something may be really challenging, but I can do it. There will be pitfalls and there will be lots of barriers on the way. But I say this a lot to my mentees. I almost feel like if I don't give up, the universe will give in to me.
Mhm.
And that is very much the attitude I've always had. However, like, the back to the cultural awareness and the self-awareness piece, you see there, I've just articulated so many different intersectionalities to me: woman, Asian, Muslim, and not your obvious leader.
And it is important to really have that awareness, because awareness is everything. I don't think you can do anything about a situation until you become aware of it. And most people isn't aware. They're getting on with their everyday activities and really trying to survive. Sometimes many individuals are trying to survive the workplace, just getting through on a day-to-day basis. It's a battle for many individuals. How do I really operate here effectively and not being judged? Or, what does people think about me? I'm a woman. I mean, I am this, because every day we get up and we have that conversation. I am this, I am not this. I am this, I'm not this. you know, and that is a torture. So I am this, I'm not this, and it's that rules of engagement again, isn't it? How do you imagine every day you wake up thinking, I am this, I am not this, I am this, I'm not this, and yeah, can you imagine how conflicting that can be for an individual? Yeah, and it's about even young people and social media. I am this, I'm not this, and we really need to understand that conversation. What is it like comparing? It's comparison, isn't it? We're talking about it in that sense. And comparison takes away your joy. It stops you from really living. Because if you're getting up every day thinking, I am this, I'm not this, I am this, and I'm not this, and no one else is torturing you apart from yourself torturing yourself in that sense. And that whole thing around cultural, as you actually said. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I think just taking on board in a leadership capacity when you are managing, I mean, for anyone who's listening, who's running a company or is sitting in a position of responsibility, it's very important that we do think about the people we manage or the people we work with. Um, I mean, I don't mean to offend, but I do feel like that awareness isn't there with people in leadership positions. Um, and and because we tend to rise to a certain status and then we become complacent. Without agility, the world evolving all the time, change is happening around us. If we are not moving and evolving with the times, that doesn't mean giving up your cultural identity, but understanding your people and the people around you is really, really important. Because I'll give you an example. During COVID, my workplace, Wolfen Forest Community Hub, we worked so hard and my team were extremely conscious about the service users, the people we were supporting within our community. And we were talking about how the cost of living crisis is affecting them. And we, went out of our way trying to get funding. I mean, my role was I was prioritizing fundraising. As you know, Lorlett, that's my forte. I'm a professional fundraiser. So I was focusing on getting funding into the charity so that we can have more capacity to support more residents of the borough. Little did I realize, little did I realize, it never hit me that um, my team are also people who are affected by the cost of living crisis. And we were having a conversation at a very senior level, and I mentioned um, I went away on holiday in November to build some houses in Bangladesh, right? To meet the women. I come back in December and I got a bill for more than £500 from the utility company, right? And I just mentioned that. And that was enough for us to start discussing at a senior leadership level what it's like for everybody else. So the reality is, those of us who are so busy serving others don't always think about our own needs.
Mm.
And I felt really sad actually afterwards, thinking, why didn't I even think of this? Like, there are people around me that are working to help the community, but they're probably struggling to pay their bills, you know.
Mm.
And I think for me, it was very much for me to have that self awareness about myself and to be comfortable to say, you know what, I'm struggling. Because for me to do that meant everybody else around me would also reap the benefits of whatever action was taken. And luckily I'm surrounded and I'm in a very, very good organization with an excellent people culture, where we are constantly striving to get to know each other, and awareness is important. So we made the organization made a decision, and all staff were given a cost of living allowance. I will call it that instead of calling it a bonus. But it
Mm.
was a really, really good one. I mean, it came as a surprise to me. But that's the kind of organizational culture that makes you want to like not leave those kind of environments, because people care. And I think that's the power of awareness. And I just gave that example. I know it's a long example, but it's a very, very important one, because your point around, we don't even know what struggles people are having. Every morning, you are questioning yourself.
Yeah.
Every day, in fact.
Every day, every minute. I mean, I was reading, somebody posted on LinkedIn, I can't remember exactly what it was, where she actually, her colleagues would say to her on a Monday, so what did you do on Saturday? And she said, I spent how many hours at the hairdressers having my hair done. And her boss actually, heard what she was saying and said, well, would you consider taking some time off during the week that you could go to the hairdressers so you can have more time to spend with your family at the weekend instead of having to spend 4 or 5 hours or whatever it takes to be in the hairdressers. And now that is cultural awareness, isn't it? In understanding, she's a black woman. It took such a long time for her to have her hair flat. That
Mm,
takes a lot of time. So her boss said, yeah, well, why don't you go during the week? We're quite happy for you to take some time off to have your hair done instead of spending all that time in hairdressers. And, for me, it's that level of having an awareness that there's a difference in terms of how long it takes her to be in the hairdressers. And without awareness, nothing happens, and it's understanding what that is about. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got um, the understanding of what it takes in order to remember when I was saying about putting that work to work. You
Mm,
know, being a leader is keep on putting that work to work, that awareness, be aware of what's happening around you.
mm,
And you know, I always say being a leader, your life is no longer your own. It's
mm.
about everybody else. And you're right, it's about taking care of others, and it's nurturing. You know, sometimes when you're in a leadership role, you take over a parenting role, definitely. You know, because people come with all kind of concerns, and you know, you got to nurture them. You got to listen to them. You have to have that understanding about what is it they're actually dealing with at all times.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, some of us who have been in leadership positions, I've always been judged or been worried about being judged as a nurturer. And for a long time, I hid that, or I tried to hide. I don't think I ever managed to hide because people know when they know. Because I had somebody who joined 2 years ago, and as soon as she joined, and we had this like a meal, and it was like a welcoming thing for her. And she said to me, Monwara, you reminded me of my grandmother. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, she was a feeder. But yeah, it's nurturing, I think, is a superpower. It shouldn't be underestimated or undervalued because I've seen teams lacking that nurturing from leadership and falling apart and people walking away. So it's, yeah, I think that's a really powerful thing you just shared around somebody's difference, meaning that they need longer to do their hair. How would any employer say I'm just being a devil's advocate. You've got a group of all white men, or not even all white men, all Bangladeshi men, and they have somebody different walking into that space. We only know from our own perspective. How would we ever know the difference in that individual or what then how their needs differ? Is it possible?
I mean, if you think of especially the aging population now, many of us at our age are looking after aging parents. You know, many of them are carers, and
Mm.
they're working full time as well, doing it. You know, in that sense. And so it's really about finding out what's going on in people's lives. You know, theoretically, you are actually there to facilitate whatever people are actually dealing with and make sure all those processes and structures are in place to enable them to function effectively. And you have no idea what people are dealing with until we ask the question. It's in the questions that you get the answers all the time. You know, don't make assumptions. Oh, Manwara, I can see this. Oh, you know, I can see that you used to do this and you're no longer doing that. You know, so what's happening? What's going on? You know, become curious. And that's where the connection comes into it. Because when people know that you care, they will open up to you and they tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and caring is like you can't hide whether you are a carer, a nurturer, you can't hide it, can you? Because it comes out in your, like if you're someone on social media, it comes out in the way you present yourself, your activities and your work. If you are someone who shares, I like to impart knowledge, whatever way, because I feel like somewhere someone is taking something away from it. And I love the way you also raise awareness through your cards, Lorlett. You make me laugh, and I know there's a few people that are joining us right now from different places. I apologize in advance if I am not able to acknowledge because we're in the flow of conversation. But yeah, the last thing there is about being a leader is a hard road to walk, and in the mix, very joyful. And I couldn't agree more. Lole, I wanted to, you know, focus on how you do it, because you do it, you raise that awareness through your cards. Tell us a little bit or give us an example of
I
a.
think I think there is so many different aspects of the reason why I created the cards to really champion cultural intelligence. And, you know, it's self expression, it's my community language, it's self expression. I was working with a group of 20 black boys that weren't engaging with education effectively. And so I wanted to connect them to their community language and enabling them to understand there is more than one way to communicate. So it's communicating in a very impactful way. So, for example, when my grandmother speaks to me with her stories, there's so much tied up in these stories and very impactful. Got me to think, got me to become aware of what's around me. And what I like about the Proverbs as well is that they use all the resources that was available to them way back, whether it's a cow, whether it's a cat, whether it's a sheep, whatever it is, they would tell a story around the cat or the cow or whatever it is. And so you become aware of what's available to you in terms of resources. So I remember a young man I was working in schools with, and it was about you can't sit on a bucket and draw water at the same time. And, he was saying, Miss, what's a bucket? you know, and and I'm thinking, yes, it's the environment, isn't it? And being aware to him, what's a bucket got to do with anything? But having the awareness that whoever was expressing that proverb or created that proverb or that story was using the resources that was available to them at the time. And so to me, the Proverbs is enabling people to really get connected to what's around them and also having the awareness of what you see sometimes is not necessarily that. Somebody again shared on LinkedIn this week around a proverb, a Jamaican proverb, where it says, "We little but we tall," right? And what that means is you're small, but you have a lot of strength. And sometimes, we might see somebody and think they're not capable based on our assumptions about them. But, when you think of Jamaica is a very small island, really, but the competitiveness and, what actually come out of those islands in terms of innovative way of thinking, the creativity. Jamaica brand is very, very strong all over the world, in understanding that. And it's only a small island, in compared to other places. But it's the strength of the people, it's the fighting spirit, it's the commitment, it's the perseverance. I remember when Usain Bolt, I think when 2005 when he won the first race, I think, and when he said, "I'm going to be a legend," and it was like one of the radio interviewer was saying, "He's a bit arrogant, isn't he?" I mean, how can he be saying? But he had a vision, and a passion and a commitment and a determination. And that's what it takes when you lead. Look at the influence, look at the legacy he's left behind because he was so clear about who he is and having that awareness. I think it's important to really understand who you are as a leader. Muhammad Ali was another one that really inspired me when he said, "I'm the greatest." And he went to his grave being the greatest. It's understanding that as well. As a leader, what conversation are you having around you to enable people to believe you, trust you, and to really follow your lead, if that makes sense?
Yes, absolutely makes sense. I'm taking everything in that you've just said. And that whole thing about vision. You know, sometimes this is not pre planned or scripted, by the way, people, everyone who's listening. So, sometimes you're just making me think, Lorlett. Sometimes everyone can lead themselves, but that vision piece comes from those who understand and are prepared not only to share their vision and say it out loud arrogantly, but also develop a system which involves consistently working towards it, right? So, my vision is to build an institute, a learning institute in Bangladesh. Nobody knows how long I've been thinking about it and why I decided this year is going to be the year I'm going to fundraise. I know it will happen because I have a vision. But what others may not realize is how we work towards building that consistency. So every week, every day, every week, doing something towards reaching that vision. And I know this is not a coaching session for either of us, but like those who are listening, it will be beneficial to realize that it's not just a question of waking up one morning, having a vision, and just putting it out there. It's about also being an architect and
Mm,
accepting, yes, you've had a vision, what you can do about it.
mm,
And what do you need to put into place? So, almost like a business plan. And how I'm supporting organizations with business planning and development is exactly the same. Like you have to have like a business plan. You have to know where you're going. You may have a vision of where you want to be, but there are so many steps you have to put on the way. And that's why being a leader is a hard road to follow. It's I've put Gwendolyn Levert's comment. I've just highlighted being a leader is a hard road to walk because it's not easy, and especially when you are very open about your vision and you are willing to share it with others. There's two things that can happen from that. Either you inspire others and they come along on the journey with you, and then that's what makes you the trailblazer, right? Or um, you fail or you learn, so you don't reach your vision. But I do believe that whatever barriers or um, learnings you have, so the other way that it could go is that it doesn't happen this year, doesn't mean it won't happen next year or the year after or the year after. If you don't give up, the universe will give in. That was back to what I said earlier. And your comments around like raising that awareness. And I do want to go back because I know Lorlett, we kind of I was trying to take us back to this where you've got an environment and you've got one black woman who needs 4 hours to do her hair. I think we should have these uncomfortable conversations because I think it's a huge learning for listeners. How would like this gonna come as a shock? But when my mother came to the UK and she saw a black person for the first time, she was staring because she'd never seen a black person before. We've come a long way. I am the type of person who does get it and know that another black colleague might take 3, 4 hours to do her hair. And taking that into consideration means a lot, you know? So it is a hard road to walk, but what would you say are like some of the reasons why maybe organizations or people, because organizations, what are they? They're not just a name, are they? Organization is a group of people. Why is it that organizations find it so hard to be so inclusive or to be as aware when it comes to other people's differences?
it comes back down to what I said earlier, the rules of engagement. I think that is so powerful. You know, what were you taught growing up? What conversations you heard around you? What is important and what isn't important? What's accepted and what's not accepted? And I'll give you an example. When I started my business, one hand can't clap. I specifically took out the apostrophe from can't, and to allow people to understand, yep, grammatically, it might not be correct without a comma, but it doesn't mean that you don't understand what it actually means in that sense. Having the
And
comma, having the comma there is one thing. It can still work. And at the time, I didn't realize that with the internet, there's no comma in any of the what do you call it, the email addresses. There's no comma. There's a full stop, but there's no comma. You look, there's never a comma in any of the email addresses. And at the time, I didn't realize that. So that's the thing about innovation and forward thinking and passionate about something and having an awareness about something. I really believe that sometimes, we discriminate against people because they didn't put a comma in something. So you might have a manager who give you a report to write and make judgments about you because you didn't put a comma in something, and recognizing my question then, did you understand what the report is? Yes, I did. However, you're making a big thing. Even in my appraisal, your weaknesses, you don't write with a comma. And I'm thinking, there's a bigger side to me than a comma. you
mm,
know, there's a bigger side to me. So when I decided to started my business, I used that experience of my manager really, beating me over the head because I didn't put a comma in something, and I'm thinking there's a bigger side to me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take that comma out of can't, and see what happens. And yes, a lot of people used to send me comments around there is no comma in your card. So it just goes to show how people hold you accountable for something which appeared to be this is how it should be. And now
mm.
when you look at the age of technology, there's no comma in emails addresses. So it just goes to show.
That's very interesting because what you've just described is like what is one person's what person sees as a gap is somebody else's strength, and that's really powerful. I find that a lot, like when I'm surrounded by difference around me, and I sometimes, a lot of the times, it's because the awareness isn't there. And so your cards are a really good icebreaker. I recently worked with two different groups and can't begin to emphasize, the one way to raise self awareness or awareness generally as a group is doing things that we do for fun that then makes us feel a little bit relaxed around each other. Because, we don't opinionate due to fear, fear of being judged. And I think that goes with everyone. I could be working with someone from Jamaica for many, many years. Doesn't mean I know a lot about them. I would like to, but our life is so busy, sometimes we don't take the time to. But I think sometimes productivity comes from those things. The unleashing of productivity comes from doing things together to learn more about each other. Then we tend to, like, there was a huge London conference which was organized during Ramadan, and it's an event I wanted to go to. And I was a little bit annoyed because I thought some of the organizers, or at least there was one organizer in there who was Muslim, why did they not put their hand up and say, you know what, guys, can we do this like 2 days before Ramadan because 70% of our clientele are Muslim? You know, what made or what stopped that individual from putting their hand up and sort of really utilizing knowledge that they held in that situation because it could have completely changed everything. Why is it that people hold knowledge and then they don't share it? And I think that's just like fear of judgment.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes back down to the rules of engagement. It's important. And I think that should be a part of the curriculum that we teach young people coming up. Because they're the next generation. Recognize that everything is situational. It's not just one way. And so in one situation you might be this person. Again, it's like we're not just one way, we're multifaceted. We're multidimensional, so it's really understanding that as well. As you talked about earlier, this is how we do things here. This is the culture, but outside of work, you're a mother, you're a carer. There's so many aspects to you in that sense. There's not just one way about you. Whereas some people just see you one way and one way only, and you can't be any other thing. I remember having appraisal where they would tell me, oh, you're not good at this, you're not good at this, you're not good at this, you're not good at this. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not good at this, but what is good about me in that sense? And I could spend a lot of time looking at what's wrong with me instead of looking at what's right with me. And I think even that cultural intelligence need to take that on board. That just because somebody isn't good at grammar or commas or whatever it is, look at how you can actually, yeah, the report is perfect apart from the grammar, and recognizing, okay, give it to somebody else to read. Put that structure in place before you hand it over. Develop that personal confidence and actually say, well, okay, before you hand it in or before you bring it to me, can you ask a member of your team to read it before? And, ask for help in that sense. We don't encourage people to ask for help. And the other thing is, most people are fearful to say they don't know
Mm.
because you get criticized, you get punished to say you don't know. But as I always say to all my clients, the greatest thing is not knowing because that's where the discovery comes into it. This is where the curiosity comes into it. When I don't know, I just don't know until I know in that sense. So when we talk about cultural intelligence, it's really about understanding, is this person aware of what's available, the resources that's available? Yeah, I might write the report, and yes, the report is good. It's got all the stats, it's got all the data in there and everything else. But punctuation, comma might be missing. Give it to somebody else who would love to do that. And recognizing that, these days, leadership is not about one person, it's about the whole team
Absolutely.
pushing forward. You know, leadership is no longer about authority. It's about the team. Who's the best person in the team that's going to bring the objective together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And you've just pointed out why, like, when organizations or leaders are not reviewing what they have around them, they are missing a very important trick, which is capitalizing the strength around them. And there's two pieces to this awareness building. One is knowing what strength you hold. Sadly, the organization you worked in with that appraisal culture, obviously, sometimes it's like a tick box exercise, and they didn't realize or utilize how they could have best utilized your strengths. I find that appraisal is a very good way of raising awareness of the other part of awareness. One is knowing who you are, knowing my strengths. The other is knowing the strength of your team. How will you know your team's strengths? And it's very much picking that up and then doing an architectural job in designing the roles within that team. So I have done, I know I'm giving too much away now. For anyone who's been on any of my teams, they'll figure it out now. So I have sometimes paired people up. where I felt one had a strength in one area but a weakness in another. And I think when they come together, they would be an excellent one whole. So I have deliberately paired them up and said, can you do this together, please? And of course, I've had all sorts of, let's just say, hiccups on the way. But like, and this is why leadership, that point earlier about not being a straight road and being a hard road, it has taken longer because first they have to work on overcoming their differences, start embracing each other's strengths, and that journey can be a longer journey than we
Hmm.
imagine. But the joy I get at the end of it is what makes it worth having the patience, because like for example, myself, I have a strength in I'm a good content writer. Not that I've maybe I'm in the wrong profession, Lorlett. That's the profession I should be in. But I am a good content writer. But that's because somebody told me I would fail English.
Okay.
And I wanted to prove them wrong. So I worked very hard, went to every single after school class. I used to read like religiously since I was really little. And what somebody identified as a possible weakness in that could become a possible weakness, I turned it around to make it my strength. And then bid writing, fundraising just only improved my skill. I write articles, I write things, and the more I practice that thing, the more I get better at it. Um, so I think what you were talking about, back to that powerful thing around awareness of the people around you and their strength. If you focus only on what you see as someone's weakness or gap, all you're going to do is get that from that individual.
And that is so true because I do believe the rules of engagement is important. And culturally, you have to also understand in what and where is it you're actually coming from. What's your point of reference? Because we live in a society is based on three things: blame, shame, and complain. If I can blame you, if I can shame you, and I can complain about you, then you keep this story going about not being good enough. And so many of us being taught about not being good enough. And we spend so much time trying to be good enough. And that has a huge impact because then, I'm not good, I can't. And you spend a lot of time because, the media tells you that there's something wrong with you. Education tell you there's something wrong with you. The people around you tell you there's something wrong with you. And so you start to think, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough. I better not speak up in meetings. Um, is my pronunciation right? Are people really hearing me? And so that whole rules of engagement is so important. And, we need to push it that people understand that different strokes for different folks. And we're not all the same. We don't speak the same. We don't operate the same. You could have children from the same family. They're not the same. They all think differently. And it's about understanding what is it that makes us great and keep on pushing that agenda. Look at our greatness and forget about what's wrong with us.
Absolutely, 100%. It's just, yeah, it's that's the kind of leadership style I've always advocated for. Like, let's focus on our strengths, because it's only when you focus on your strength, right, you realize your uniqueness, because we all are unique. There is no other Lorlett Hudson. There is no other Monwara Ali. If there is one, please show me who it is, because I've never met that person. I'm still trying to learn who I am and discover more of me. And that comes with recognizing your strengths. And if we as a company culture, all we ever do is focus on weakness, we don't get the best out of the people and their strengths, because like you will always find like in every team you will find different strengths. And I mean, there are tools, obviously, like your SWOT is a very good way of figuring out your team strengths and the people around you. And then it makes it easier for the leader to navigate their way around designing that architectural piece that will then lead to a productive way of getting to the end goal of whatever the project is trying to achieve or the campaign is trying to achieve. Lolette, one of your connections made a comment, and I just thought it'd be good for you to address or at least respond. Storytelling is integral to understanding culture, which is why it is important we tell stories and we listen intently to stories. I'm so happy to hear Lorlett speak about the rules of engagement, congruently the title of my book, The Rules of Engagement in Storytelling.
Yes, Jay, definitely. You know, community building is about storytelling. Keeping conversation in place is about storytelling. And so, in organization, what story are people telling in those organizations? Why people think it's all right to discriminate against somebody regarding a comma. There is a story going on in there about being perfect and understanding that. So we have to be careful about the story that we tell and keeping certain things in existence because it's story that's been passed down throughout the generation. It's like women can't do this. There's a role for a man and there's a role for a woman. Pink for girls and blue for boys. It's a story that's been handed down throughout the generation. Why can't you just put on any color on any child? What difference does it make?
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, what difference does it make? And those stories have conditioned us, right? And what awareness does is make us recognize and realize that. But that comes with having these open, honest conversations, which are a lot
Mm.
more harder in big organizations. And I think that's why I love doing this, Lorlette, because I think, it is bringing out of you and I things that other people can take away, and it can inform their way of leading others, and leading themselves too, because leadership has to begin with yourself. Like, I
Yeah.
can't lead a group if I don't know who I am. I can't lead a big group until, well, I can, but I'm going to have lots of difficulties. I'm going to struggle. But it makes it so much more easier. And this is where the coaching and mentoring comes about. If you know your own personal strengths and your gaps, because then you can design the team accordingly, right? And then also the team of people you end up leading, you can get the best out of everyone. So nobody is excluded, because inclusion is my value, one of my values, and I wouldn't say it's one of my values if I didn't work hard enough to make sure that I'm thinking of inclusion all the time.
And
Inclusion.
it's important what you just said there because, when I run inclusion workshops, I always ask a question at the beginning, tell me a time when you feel excluded from something because that's when you feel disempowered. It could be people are going off and not asked you or invite you to come to lunch, and you're sitting there thinking, why haven't they asked me? And then you internalize that I'm not good enough.
Mm.
And, maybe they hadn't even thought about it because they're so accustomed to doing things a particular way with the same people in the same situation and not thinking about, oh, should we include this person or should we invite them? Sometimes I don't think people intentionally go out of their way to exclude people. It just becomes the norm and they just do what they are accustomed to and not even aware of what's happening around them. If that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And what I would do in that situation, Lolette, is throw in a nurturer. So I would throw in a nurturer in that team, because I know the nurturer will have very high levels of empathy, will think, will be very people orientated, and a people's person. And not everybody in a leadership role is a people's person. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that if you that's not your strength, you can't be a leader. You can. But then it's you've got to be self-conscious of, okay, if I am that type of leader, who do I need in my team that can balance that? What is not my natural type, who do I need who can balance that natural type? That doesn't make any of us any better than each other, but it means that we are much stronger and more of a whole. Otherwise, there's a little gap. And what will happen is that gap will also make that person feel like they're good enough as a leader because
Yeah.
everyone around them will disengage because they don't have that personality type like they're just naturally not doing it. Others will end up complaining, others will disengage, but then if you throw something else in that mix is what they need, it changes the dynamics completely. I'm in the wrong job, Lorlett.
No, you're not. And that's a good point. You bring it to a good point. So, what are you working on this week? What's your focus in terms of your leadership to take you to the next level? And the reason I'm asking you, I'm preparing for my Vision Quest retreat in October because I think
Mm,
it's important for all leaders to take time out and to reflect
mm,
and where they're going,
mm,
what's the
mm.
vision, where you lead in your organization, what's happening. It's the awareness again. So, what are you working on this week, Monwara? So when we come back on Saturday, we
Oh,
can share the outcome. What you working on? What's your biggest thing?
I think for me, we are personally, I'm working on my own well being and preparing myself for the mountain climb in May. And I think that has a lot to do with my own, not just me, but the rest of the team. A lot of screen time, my eyes are hurting. So it is more about trying to make sure every morning I'm getting an hour and a half to myself. And some of it is focused towards walking and the place where I fail is my muscles. I'm not always stretching, so I have to try and get the stretching in. Professionally, the thing that I'm focusing on at the moment is the Austria, like the team, but also apart from that, at the community hub, we are focusing on trying to raise funds or at least bring ourselves to a place where we are developing our future business plan. The next 3 years or 5 years, where do we want to go? And part of that is trying to raise funds to restore our building because we've just had a condition survey undertaken, which shows more than 3 million will have to be raised to fully restore that building. So it's a huge challenge. And I'm not on that journey on my own. The other thing professionally is as chair of the EDI committee, I am involved in some of the committee members and myself. We are talking to EDI champions across the country online and trying to understand. So I'm trying to raise my own awareness of what they're doing in their roles as EDI champions. What does it mean? And how can we work as a, like collective in advocating inclusion in the space of fundraising? Because the EDI committee is the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, EDI committee. I am very new to it. I've been in the chair's role for about 2, 3 months, I think. So I've attended one meeting, and so some very, very knowledgeable and highly experienced individuals in leadership and in fundraising around that table. And what gave me the confidence or and the courage to be leading in that space, because equity, diversity, inclusion is not a space that's um, comfortable at all. It's an uncomfortable space. But what gave me confidence was knowing that everybody around the table was open to learning, and knowing that we don't know, yet we want to know. We are want to know, and we want to learn, and we want to grow together. That is what gave me the confidence. And I have to say, Lorlett, it's been a really great experience so far. Just to see that the people around you are like embracing change and agility, because that's the only way, right? If you really want to see a better world and you want to make those big changes in the world, you have to embrace that we're not going to know everything. And just when you thought you had some stability, something's going to happen and throw you off the track.
And that is so true, because this conversation was about cultural intelligence and understanding the awareness. And my big project is about wellness for leaders, that they combine business and leisure together, and come to a retreat where you look at your vision, you look at your wellness, and you look at your leisure, and also you learn some cultural insider experience. So you have an awareness, because use Jamaica for example. When you look at all the positive things that come out of Jamaica, you still hear the conversation around it's a violent place, there is a lot of crime and everything else. So it's giving people an opportunity to really look at what is the rules of engagement. So Jay, I can't wait to get your book to really understand what you've written about the rules of engagement, because that's what it's all about. To engage with something, you have to have an awareness of what it is without making judgments about it, and be okay with it. It's like looking at food and thinking, oh my God, I can't eat that, until you taste it and you think, oh, it doesn't taste as it looks, so that's cultural intelligence in that sense. And I'm mindful of time, Monwara, people's time as well. So I'll hand over to you so we can complete the call. And it's been great. The conversation we've been having is so rich, and the participants so engaging as well. Some of the comments, thank you all for being here. And Monwara, I'm handing you over so you can complete the call. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I would, I would just say, Lorlett, that I'm curious, and maybe for next Saturday we can share some of Jamaica online. And if I just quickly give an example of where one of the hiking routes for Austria, right?
Wow.
So,
Nice.
so this is one of the hiking routes of the Austria trip. And we're raising funds to build a learning institute for women in Bangladesh. But there'll be 7 or 8 of us climbing in Austria, and this place is called El I think it's Elmostain
Elmostin.
route.
Elmostin.
Yeah, Almasteen route.
Mm.
So yeah, so it's this is I just wanted to share that that's one of the routes that we will be taking on that journey. And we want to, at the next Saturday Live, share some of your Jamaican retreat, and I think raise awareness about a part of the culture itself, and what you share through your retreat, so that people are aware of what we are doing, and people are also excited, and I think it's nice to be able to give people that courage if that's what you take away. And we're more than happy if you have questions for us next Saturday. We're going to leave you here with the thought that we don't know what we don't know until we are willing to be curious. Have a
Yeah.
great weekend, everyone.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.